Yo, the Sixers took care of the Brooklyn Nets. The sweep is done. Now it's time to bring on Boston because, yes, I know Atlanta won one game, but it's bring on Boston. Eagles, Derrick Henry rumors, wide receiver draft rumors, Phillies taking 3 out of 4 of the Rockies. All this and more. Trend in the AM. It starts in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM, right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. If you want to get interactive with the show, head over to the YouTube page. Hit the likes button, the subscribe button, turn your notifications on so you don't miss a second when any of the shows go live here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We got a jam-packed week here on Trending in the AM and on Philadelphia Sports Network. Lots of conversations. We've got the draft, the NFL draft this week. We've got the Sixers, the NBA playoffs continuing, the Phillies continuing. So much happening. So you want to make sure you stay locked in to Philadelphia Sports Network. I actually clicked to go live like 5 minutes early just because I know there's so much to talk about. Got so much to get off my chest. So it's an overreaction Monday, but I'm not going to overreact too much today because I think all the topics that we have to cover are pretty basic in the sense where overreacting isn't necessary. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel. Make sure you shoot me a follow on Twitter at Bearded Knowledge. I'd greatly appreciate that. Again, like I said, drop any of your comments, thoughts, questions, Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, whatever you want to talk about. If there's something else you want to talk about, bring it up. I know there's one person that always comments wanting to talk about the Philadelphia Stars. I don't know nothing about the Philadelphia Stars. I don't. I won't. I don't know. But I'll do my best. So anybody, bring those questions, your comments. Saturday, 1 o'clock, the Sixers took care of business, finishing the sweep of the Brooklyn Nets in kind of sort of fair fashion, 96-88. Like, I don't want to say they took care of business easily. They didn't, but they did take care of business. Joel Embiid was ruled out for the game on Friday. He's got a knee sprain of some kind. We're going to get into that in a minute. But it almost felt like at first, before we heard Doc Rivers say, bring up his concerns about it, it almost felt like they were just using a knee injury as an excuse to rest Joel Embiid. Because let's be honest, the Brooklyn Nets were banging and banging and banging on Joel Embiid so much, knocking him down, pushing him over, all different kinds of things. And he was obviously limping and hurting a lot. At first it felt like that's what it was. And the Sixers came out on Saturday and took care of business. James Harden did his thing. Tyrese Maxey did his thing. Tobias Harris continued to be – every time we get down on Tobias Harris, every time we say Tobias Harris isn't the guy, all of a sudden Tobias Harris steps up again. And that Brooklyn series, he had over 20 points 3 of the 4 games. And the other game, I think he had 18 points. We do not take care of business against the Brooklyn Nets like we do in a sweep fashion if Tobias Harris does not play out of his mind like he did. It's great. It was fantastic to see how Tobias Harris played all series long. Everybody just stepped up across the board without Joel in there on Saturday. I'm looking at the box scores here. Paul Reed, obviously, 32 great quality minutes. Jalen McDaniels, DeAnthony Melton, 2 straight Thursday and Saturday, game 3 and 4. 2 straight huge games for the Sixers off the bench. Tyrese Maxey, again, didn't shoot. The whole team as a whole didn't shoot great on Saturday, but they shot well enough. The thing that they did was they controlled their turnovers. They controlled the game as best they could, did not get into any unnecessary foul trouble, and they took care of business. But, what we saw, and we're going to continue talking about what we saw there. And mind you, I had a guest lined up for today. Something came up. Guest didn't happen. I've got a possible side guest coming on here at some point. We will see shortly. It was a last-second ad to try to fill in for my guest that I had scheduled. We'll see. We might have a guest to talk some Sixers here from a national perspective here in a little bit. But if they perform like they did against Brooklyn, they will be able to make it a series against Boston. But after watching some of the Celtics game yesterday and some of the games against Atlanta this past week, are we even remotely considering close to saying that the Sixers stand a chance against Boston? Because even though Tobias played out of his mind, even though Tyrese Maxey is Tyrese Maxey, if Joel Embiid's not healthy, and now after what we heard from Doc saying he's 50-50 whether Joel will be ready for game one, that's a scary proposition. If we do not have Joel Embiid against Boston, a team that's head and shoulders better than Brooklyn, we're in trouble. Boston's not going to need to resort. And I don't want to say Brooklyn played dirty. That's the wrong word. But Boston's not going to have to resort to the tactics that Brooklyn did about banging around Joel Embiid to stand a chance in a game. Brooklyn's just going to play their game. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, which again, it's going to suck watching Marcus Smart for 5, 6, 7 games, whatever that series goes, because I said it last night on Twitter during that Celtics-Hawks game. Is there a player in the NBA as a Sixers fan that you hate more than Marcus Smart, but would absolutely be in love with if he was on your team? Marcus Smart's one of those guys that, he does all the dirty work. He does everything right and wrong. Just bumped my soundboard there a little bit. Marcus Smart's just one of those guys. He does the dirty work. He can score. He hustles, defense, leader, heart, dog mentality. Marcus Smart's just one of those guys that, man, you hate him. But if he's all of a sudden on your team, he becomes instantly your favorite player in the league or on your team. You go out and buy a Marcus Smart jersey right away if he becomes your teammate. But it's a shame because we're going to have to see him front and center a lot. But realistically speaking, people, do we stand a chance if Joel Embiid's not, 100%? And I think the answer is clearly no. And I don't know about you, but Doc Rivers' comments after the game definitely gave me some pause. Definitely scared me a little bit that maybe this was not a let's rest Joel and come up with an injury for the report. That maybe Joel really got something wrong with that knee. And look, Joel's been banged up all year. He's been battling a knee, an ankle, the back, the shoulder, so many things. And the narrative, I already see it all over social media. Joel Embiid can't stay healthy, which is a conversation that has to be had. And we'll have it as soon as the season's over. We won't have it right now, like, is he too injury prone and whatnot? And how do you work around that? But you saw on Saturday that this team can win without Joel. And I know Doc Rivers brought it up before the game. They were 11-5 this year in games without Joel, so they can win. Now, I haven't gone back and dove in deep who the opponents were in those games. Did we play Boston type games, or did we play other type teams? Like that's the question. Like, who are we beating in the games when Joel Embiid isn't playing? That's something that we have to look further into. But can this team compete against Boston with Joel at 85% or without Joel at all? And it's really tough. If you watched any of the Boston-Atlanta game yesterday, and it was a good game. Atlanta gave it their best fight. They gave it their best push. But looking at the lineup that we rolled out there Saturday, Tucker, Harris, Reed, Maxey Harden, is that going to beat Boston? Getting 25 points a night, 25 points a night from Tobias Harris, that's great. That helps. But let's be honest. Are we going to get 11 to 19? Are we going to get 19 shots out of Tobias Harris on a given night when Joel's not out there? He's got to, but you look at it, 25 and 12 from Tobias Harris in 37 minutes. That's impressive. But can he do it when Jason Tatum's guarding him or Al Horford's on him? I don't know. Tyrese Maxey, he did not have, he had a couple big games against Brooklyn, but his shooting percentage wasn't really high. He had 16 points on Saturday only. Played 39 minutes, 6 of 20, 1 for 4 from deep. He looked like he was struggling in the series as a whole. James Harden, we had 2 really good James Harden games and 2 really bad James Harden games. And that's a concern. He looks old, James Harden, all of a sudden. He looked like he had a little burst in game 1. But, 4 of 18 shooting. He got to the line finally a decent amount in game 4, which is helpful. But 17 points on 18 shots, it's not good enough. When 7 of those, he had 10 points on 18 shots, basically, from the field. The 11 assists are great. The 8 rebounds are great. But is that good enough? I don't know. It's interesting, Doc Rivers' growth, non-growth on handling the bench and the bench matchups. I've been uber critical. Everybody knows I'm uber critical of Doc Rivers. We won the game on Saturday, so I can't really be critical. We swept Brooklyn. I can't be critical. He gave Shake Milton 4 minutes just to see what happens. He took 5 minutes away from Paul Reed and gave him to Montrezl Harrell. I mean, I'm not going to complain about it because let's be honest, we won the game, we won the series. But against Brooklyn, with or without Joel, or against Boston, with or without Joel Embiid on there, Shake and Montrezl Harrell should not be on the court. Paul Reed, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, is going to have to somehow find the energy to play 35, 38 minutes, and they're just going to go small ball. You can play small ball against Brooklyn or against Boston. McDaniels can play a small ball center. George Niang can play small ball center. He loves playing P.J. Tucker in that small ball center role. You need to see him tighten up that rotation. If Joel does not play, there should not be more than 8 guys that see the floor. That's Melton, Yang, McDaniels, and that's it. If Joel plays, you get the 9th guy and Paul Reed picking up minutes, but that's it. You can't complain about anything Doc did against Brooklyn, but you can't compliment. Again, I said it before the Brooklyn series. Brooklyn was a team with nothing to lose, and they were playing free, and their coach and their team, they weren't expected to be there. And they played with heart, hustle, a little bit that dog mentality, maybe a little too much of that dog mentality. But they were outclassed, and everybody knew that. Everybody around the league knew that. And the Sixers took care of business. They didn't give them the gentleman's sweep of us 5 games and let them win 1 game. They took care of business and got it done right away. And you got to give the Sixers credit. You could have easily let off the gas at one point in that series and let them take 1 game. And with Joel banged up, with James being older, it's very hard to, it's very easy to give up one of those games, and they did. So you got to give Doc Rivers credit for keeping them focused to get the series done in 4 games. See, Mark, this is what I opened the show with. If you missed the first 2 or 3 minutes, I said this, Mark. Is he? And I thought that at first, but then you hear his comments after the game about how he's 50-50 whether he'll be ready at all in the series or a few games into the series. I'm a little concerned. I thought initially that's what he was doing too, but I don't know. I mean, all the criticism thrown at Embiid. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you here. I mean, if you're on Twitter, you see it. I saw somebody, the guy I'm trying to get on as my filling guest, already say, make a comment about Jokic, Embiid's the MVP, but Jokic does no. Embiid is the player. He is the man. But you gotta at least talk about in the offseason, what is availability is everything in sports. Joel isn't always available. So it is a conversation to be had. And the way he flops and the way you would think at this point he has learned how to not flop and fall and hit the ground. I mean, let's count how many times a game in the Brooklyn series. Some of them were not his fault. Some of them were Brooklyn being way over the top rough on him. Why would you listen to them? Don't listen to those guys. You listen to Trending in the AM on Philadelphia Sports Network. You can plug your phone into your car and listen on the ride to work. You don't need the radio. Exactly. How are we here again with the Joel injury? And that's all. That's the only criticism of Joel Embiid that warrants a conversation. It's part bad luck. It's part his size. It's part we're doomed. It's part Brooklyn playing super borderline dirty. Not dirty, but borderline dirty in that series. They were banging him intentionally, Kyle. And that is part of the issue. And part of the issue was the refs. I'm not one to blame the refs for a win, a loss, whatever. I like to try to keep the refs and umpires in baseball out of the conversation as much as possible. But if the refs would have called some of those extra hard pushes and knockdowns, they might have been forced to stop playing that way. And the refs let it go that way. So they kept doing it. Until you stop them from doing it, they're going to keep doing it. And that was what the problem was. If Joel misses, now I know Embiid will play. Book it, Mark. I hope you're right. But we wouldn't be having that conversation maybe if the refs did something to eliminate some of the over-the-top physicality that the Brooklyn Nets were playing on Joel Embiid. And if Joel Embiid misses time, it's kind of like when his orbital was broken. Who was it? Was it Siakam that hit him in the face? Whoever hit him with the chicken wing. No fouls were called. They were playing dirty. It was a freak thing. But that changed the course of that playoffs. If this course of this playoffs has changed because Joel misses significant time against Boston, it's going to come down to two conversations in the offseason. The Joel Embiid injury history, but also the refs letting those games get out of hand against Brooklyn. And which is funny that the refs let it get as out of hand as possible, Kyle. And Joel, banged and beaten and bruised. Literally they went to Home Depot and got every kitchen sink they could, and they threw it at him. And we still swept the Brooklyn Nets. So that's got to be something for Doc Rivers. That's got to be something to be said about the rest of this team and the makeup of the team. And I tried to listen to Game 4, at least some of Game 4, with the national announcers, because I know people bash the national announcers on ESPN and TNT, but when and I love Kate Scott and Ala. I've been hitting them. Ala, if you hear this show, I've sent you a couple DMs. I'm trying to get you on the morning show. You're free now, so you should be able to come on the morning show, Ala. Anyway, I try to listen to the national announcers a little bit, and they were bringing it up too. I tried to get their perspective on it, and they were talking nonstop about, even with everything going on with Joel Embiid, him being out for Game 4, that this Sixers team is so deep. They say it. Now, I don't think it's as deep as they say, but they were bragging so much about how deep this team is that maybe this team does actually stand a chance against Boston. Is it, though? That's, I'm just seeing this comment now. Like, is it? Are we better than we realize? Are we as Sixers fans, because we see it on a daily basis, blinded to the fact that maybe we are actually a better team because we've just been so used to disappointment year in and year out through this process? Hell, we've been so used to disappointment dating back to, God knows, it's been 1983, the last title. So we're just used to disappointment with the Sixers. And until they prove us wrong, we're just going to always look and think negatively. So maybe we are better. Maybe we are better than we think, and maybe we stand a better chance with or without Joel Embiid against Boston. Teams cannot beat Joel. Look, Boston, they proved that they don't have a way to stop Joel, but they won't have to resort to the almost I hate using the word dirty, borderline dirty tactics. They won't have to because they're well coached and they got so much more talent than Boston or Brooklyn did on their team. So it's not necessary. But again, the national media is saying that we're not so top heavy. And you think about it, you've got Paul Reed, when Joel's in there on your bench, maybe the best backup center we've had here. And you can actually play pretty well with Paul Reed. So, I mean, you look at it, I don't want to say anything bad about Joel Embiid, but that Game 4, when Paul Reed was on the floor for those 32 minutes, I kind of like the offense and way it flowed a little bit better than with Joel in that Brooklyn series. I mean, I talked about it on Thursday and I talked about it on Friday. Every time they tried to get Joel the ball, they were forcing it. It was slowing down the offense, and somebody was getting the ball with 3 seconds left in the shot clock and just having to fire up shots. We still found a way to win, but there was no flow to the offense. You put Paul Reed in there for 32 minutes, the offense kind of looked smooth. Tobias Harris, I mean, he played well all series, but Game 4 was his best game without Joel Embiid on the floor. James Harden was able to get to the rim and draw contact and fails without Joel Embiid on the floor. Tyrese Maxey struggled, but did get a boatload of shots. Shake Milton thrived without Joel. Like, I'm not trying to say that we don't need Joel Embiid. I'm not trying to say that we're better without Joel Embiid. But it was a different brand of basketball, and I heard the national media say it during the telecast at one point that Doc Rivers gets to play the type of offense that he wants, the faster-paced offense, with Joel not on the floor. So maybe it's not Joel and James or James and Doc Rivers. Like, maybe the real issue with this team, it's Joel and Doc Rivers don't. Like, everyone's like, Tobias doesn't mesh with this group or this or that. Maybe it's Joel and Doc that don't mesh well. Because, again, we've talked about it for 500 years. Joel Embiid is a man out of time. Like, 7'2" centers that dominate in the paint, they just don't grow on trees. Like, that's not the way the NBA's run anymore. And yes, Joel Embiid could be that point center to an extent, and you know, and run the point to an extent. You know, he's a different breed of big centers, but the game's fast paced. The game is about athleticism and wings, and the Sixers don't have that, but they're better without Joel on the floor at that kind of game. Now, Boston's a slower paced team. They're more of a, go, bring the ball up, get Tatum in his spot to get a shot. Bring the ball up, get the ball to Jaylen Brown to put up his shot. Bring the ball up and see what Marcus Smart can do. So the Joel Embiid type Sixers will play better against Boston, but I'm not sure what it is. It's James Harden needs to step it up now. This is the time. He looked old, but he also looked different without Joel Embiid on the floor. And that's the thing. I'm not going to say that I don't want Joel Embiid out there. I'm not going to say that. Even if it's off season, if we're blowing things up, I'm not going to say trade Joel Embiid. But you got to think about what Brooklyn is, what Toronto was when we lost to them in the playoffs, what a lot of teams do. They have a lot of athleticism and they run. And someone like Joel slows that down. And that's a question. So it's something to delve into in the future. It really is. But no, not yet. All right. I don't know. The question is, do we stand a chance against Boston? The question is, if it's overreaction Monday, if you put a gun to my head, with Joel Embiid and without Joel Embiid, overreaction Monday, if we don't have Joel Embiid, I know I just said all these things about playing well without Joel, but you put a gun to my head, if we don't have Joel for the series, even 2 or 3 games of the series, we're losing this series in 5 games. If we have Joel Embiid, I'm sure Friday, so for those that don't know, it was released, if Boston wraps up their series in 5 games tomorrow, then game 1 will be on Saturday, time to be determined. But if Boston goes to 6 or 7 games, we won't play till Monday of next week, a week from today. So if this game's going to be on Saturday, game 1, Friday, I'm sure hyper confident, Uber fan me will pick the Sixers in 5, as I always love the hashtag, or something like that. But realistically, that's not the case. Monday next week, if they start Monday, I'll be saying something positive about this Sixers team. But at this moment on Monday, overreaction Monday, the Sixers are going to be done in 5 or 6 games against Boston. And I don't care if Joel plays or not at this point. It's sad. It's frustrating. It's not what we want to see. But Boston's just that much better. I watched about 20, 30 minutes of game action. I think it was like most of the third quarter and some of the fourth quarter last night of that Boston game. And I just look at Jason Tatum. And I just look at Jaylen Brown. D'Anthony Melton's going to guard one of them. Jalen McDaniels might need to have. Man, Mark, you are Mr. Positivity on a daily basis anymore. Always calling out my negative self. It's funny, Mark. I've been doing this marks 3 weeks this year. On Wednesday, 3 years ago, I recorded my first podcast ever behind a mic. And man, I've turned into such a curmudgeon now, Mark. Supposedly, according to you. All I do is be negative now. And 3 years has changed a lot, Mark. I was so positive. My first podcast ever was recapping the 2020 NFL Draft. And all I was doing was hyping up Jalen Hurts and how happy I was Jalen Hurts was going to be here. I said, we got Jalen Reagor, and even though I don't like the pick, let's go, whatever. Getting weapons for Carson Wentz, a backup quarterback in case he misses time. Man, times have changed, my man. 3 years, and all I am is predicting losses and series exits before the Eastern Conference Finals. Sorry. Can't help it. Just where I'm at right now with this team. But again, like I was just about to say it there. Can we find all the real Sixers fans know they're going to get swept? Stop playing Joel's not even going to. Dude, I don't know about swept. With Joel Embiid, they're definitely not getting swept. Even if Joel Embiid's at 80%, we don't get swept in the series. We're good enough to get at least 1 or 2 games. But without Joel Embiid, you'd have a hard chance. You would have an opportunity to convince me that they could get swept without Joel Embiid against Boston. Look, we played well against Brooklyn, but did we really play well against Brooklyn? We had to make a lot of comebacks. Brooklyn hung in there, and we were without Joel Embiid in Game 4, but we had Joel Embiid Game 2 and 3, and it was a struggle. We got through them. So if you're looking at talent level, Brooklyn's talent's here. Boston's talent's like way off the screen compared to Brooklyn. So if we struggle to get each game against Brooklyn, which we got them, we took care of business, not taking anything away from that, took care of business against Brooklyn, but it was a struggle. It was a slugfest. You would have a hard time convincing me. Mark will have a hard time convincing me that it'll go 6 or 7 games or that they'll win. But Mark, how long can playing from behind work? How long can having to flip a switch in the third quarter and make a run work? When you're in a slower, half-court, slowed-down playoff game like you will be against Boston, a team that you've struggled against. You finally, at the end of the season, without Jaylen Brown in the lineup, finally got a W against Boston. It's going to be a struggle to make comebacks every single game when you need to. This is the key right here, SUV. Need the Hawks to win. Hell, we just assume. We're assuming it's Boston. Man, I never thought I'd become a Brooklyn or an Atlanta Hawks fan, but I'm going to be an Atlanta Hawks fan and hope that they get that series to 7 games. Hell, let's get it to let's get Atlanta to win. Let's get our Atlanta Hawks revenge by having them beat Boston and then us eliminate Atlanta for a change because we won't have the Ben Simmons passing up problem. They're not going to get swept 7-game series in a bloodbath. Again, I think getting swept is only on the table if Joel doesn't play. And even that, it's a stretch. I still think we can get 1. But if Joel doesn't play, Mark, I'm telling you, if Joel does not play, it's going to be 5 games maximum. Buffalo. We're going to get to football here in a second as we wrap up basketball talk in a minute or two. Some interesting Eagles rumors to get to and stuff like that, my man. So hang tight. Football is on the agenda. I just want to get back to this. Anyway, back to what Mark had said here. The Knicks. What is going on with the Knicks? Knicks now up, 3-1 in that series against the Cavs? I was wrong on that. I thought the Cavs would have that series. Jalen Brunson playing really well. Dude, if that was what it was, Sixers-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals, then obviously we win. I guess you're just assuming the Knicks are going to beat Milwaukee. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo will be back for the semis. He might even be back the next game. But Milwaukee will handle. Sorry, the Knicks there. You're pushing a little too far. We could just hope for them to get to. Yeah. I know. I'm trying to be. I'm told I'm too negative. So I'm trying to be positive and say maybe Atlanta, pushes this. Come on now. Heck, can't I be positive on something? I have watched a little bit of the Knicks, and the Knicks are playing great. And Mark, I know you've been tweeting a lot about Josh Hart this weekend. Well, it's about time people got on board with the Josh Hart talk. I've been talking about Josh Hart's now been on it feels like Josh Hart's played for 400 teams already in the NBA, all but the Sixers, because for a guy as talented as he is, as a guy that's so great playing his defined role of being a role player, teams trade him around. He's played on, I think, 3 teams already in the NBA. He's been traded twice already. I've been pining for the Sixers to trade for Josh Hart because he's exactly what they need. A guy that can rebound, shoot, play defense. If you need him to take 3 shots in a game only, but make sure he grabs 15 rebounds, he'll do it. If you got one of your scorers out and you need Josh Hart to put up 10 shots, He does it and does it well. Josh Hart is the ultimate role player on an NBA team. Like elite role player. Like I don't know what the Sixth Man of the Year award rankings are this year. If they've even awarded it yet, I don't know. But he's the type of guy that should win Sixth Man of the Year. He is that good. He's been a fantastic role player. Yes. Okay, so 4 teams. He's Lakers, Pelicans, Blazers, Knicks. It's crazy. A guy of his skill level has played on 4 teams already. He hasn't been in the league that long. Eric, does Harden have to step it up? Yes. To stand a chance. It would be nice, but if we have the depth to help cover for James. I just know Doc didn't play Shake heavy all season. Yeah, I mean, we could go back to the season, but James Harden has to step it up. He played really well in Game 1. Looked really tired in Game 2 and 3. He played good in Game 4. His shots weren't falling, but at least he got to the line. You shouldn't have to see Shake play in the playoffs, though, at this point. Like, I'm a Shake Milton fan, but he's a regular season guy. When he sees the court for even 4 or 5 minutes like he did in Game 4, that's because of injuries. That's because Doc's trying to find something that works and gives a spark. But Shake Milton isn't a playoff rotation player on a championship caliber team. Like, I don't think they're a championship team. Mark does. But, I just don't think that. Yeah, how does Dallas let him walk? Yeah, exactly. Here's a take before the start of football. Brunson is actually the man, and Donovan Mitchell. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know if he's the man, and Mitchell's a fraud. I will say that I said when the trade went down from Mitchell to Cleveland before the season started, I said Cleveland was going to regret it because Donovan Mitchell isn't that great. He's really, really good, but he's not great. So I don't know if Brunson is that much better than Donovan Mitchell, but Donovan Mitchell isn't as great as people think. If that makes sense there, SUV, that's how I feel about that. I was saying we should have gotten Hart. Man, I've been saying it like literally every time he's been traded. I just look at the trade. And I'm like, why couldn't we have gotten him? Like, could you imagine? You could take Jalen McDaniels or George Niang, or hell, if it would have cost, take PJ Tucker off this team, put Josh Hart, take Tobias Harris off this team, put Hart. Like literally outside of Harden, Maxey, and Bede and Melton, because I'm a huge Melton guy, Eric. If you're new to the show, I'm a big D'Anthony Melton fan. As a bench player, take those 4 guys and add Josh Hart to it. Whether he starts, comes off the bench, we're a better team with Josh Hart. Because when he comes in, that he can handle the ball, he could shoot, play defense, grab rebounds. He does it all. Whatever he's asked of. I would, if we had him going up against Boston, I wouldn't be talking about a 4 or 5, maybe 6 game series and a loss. I'd be talking we have a chance at winning that series. Hart is what we wanted Tybalt to be. Yeah, I mean, that's true. He was at the Knicks already, but I'm talking about before that, before he went to the Knicks. But, man, Hart is exactly what we want Tybalt to be. It breaks my heart to see that comment right there. And that's coming from Mr. Matisse, Mark Matisse Moschitelli, the biggest Matisse fan in the world. I haven't heard you complain about Matisse Tybalt. Is Matisse playing right? No, that's right. He's not playing right now because, that they didn't make the playoffs there in Portland. Anyway, to wrap this up, tight end situation with the Eagles. All right, we'll get to that in a second. We don't besmirch him here. Well, this is not your show, March. I can besmirch anybody I want to, and I will. We're going to keep going with these comments till they stop. Actually, he played good in Game 3. He had over 20 points before he got ejected for something. Yeah, I'm not sure what he got ejected for still. It's still the worst. He was playing good. So maybe it was Game 2 that was his worst game there. Yeah. I still do you realize now, because of the rules in the NBA, SUV, that if he gets a flagrant 1 or 1 technical, he's going to have to be suspended for a game because you get a point for flagrants and technicals. 3 points, you get a suspension. The flagrant 2 carries 2 points on it. And the fact that the NBA wouldn't change that to a flagrant 1 or just rescind it completely, putting us in a spot where he could get suspended if he gets 1 more technical. I'm new. I like Melton too. look, I bash Daryl Morey a lot. I'm not a Daryl Morey fan, but I always give credit where credit's due. The trade to bring DeAnthony Melton here is one of the best trades that the Sixers team has ever made. I mean, basically, you gave up a bag of balls. So it was what, Danny Green? And that's it to get DeAnthony Melton here. I mean, literally an amazing trade. He got the Memphis Grizzlies, so bad on that one. So he, Maxey, and Jalen with Reed and his elite task force. Melton, Maxey, yeah, absolutely. I just realized I'm behind. Let me help. So you're commenting 2 minutes before. Okay, I got you. You can get caught up. Don't worry. The show also shows on replay. Again, let's reset for a second. I'm still hoping and waiting that I got a guest coming on here at some point here. I had a guest scheduled for today. Some travel arrangements got canceled and moved around for him, so he didn't make it. But let's reset for a second here. This is Trending in the AM on Philadelphia Sports Network. Make sure you click the like button and subscribe button. We're live every single morning, 8:30 a.m., talking all the trending topics. We've got a lot of football on the docket this week with the NFL draft. Tomorrow, my man Adam Mack, he's a reporter, covers the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, Phillies AAA. He's going to join me for the whole show. We're going to talk Phillies a lot tomorrow. I'm going to touch on the Phillies at the end of the show today, but we're going to save most of my Phillies conversation for tomorrow. But stay tuned. And then we got Nick Faria, Eagles and Jets reporter, coming on Wednesday to talk NFL draft. We got Shane Half coming on Friday to recap draft day 1. Got lots going on this week here on Trending the AM. I'm definitely not a Morey fan. What does Daryl? I always say on the show, what does Daryl Morey ever want? Nothing. I give him that though for Melton, but fumbling the bag on the Kings deal. That's a conversation for the offseason, my man. Because I've had that conversation a lot on this show. Could you imagine Tyrese Halliburton on this team? Could you? Because that was an option. The two guys that we got, the two young guys we got off of, yeah, possibly. How do you think Maxey does defensively? Well, obviously, so here's the thing, Cam. First, Joel struggled massively early in his career against Boston. It took a while for him to figure out Boston. Maxey's got to figure it out. He has struggled mightily this year and last year against Boston. The problem that Tyrese Maxey's always going to have in the NBA is he's only 6'2", and he's always going to be guarded by somebody bigger than him. And Boston is a strong defensive team. They know how to play defense. Their guards are bigger, and it's not just size. It's the way you defend, and Boston's really good with it. You know what I mean? So, he's going to struggle. But we always talk about Doc Rivers not developing talent well. He has developed Tyrese Maxey pretty well in the last couple of years. No one expected Tyrese Maxey to be what he was. That's why he went so late in the draft. So it's on this week, Doc Rivers figuring something out on what's going wrong with Maxey and the Boston Celtics. It could be the difference of winning or losing the series. If Tyrese Maxey plays like he did this year against Boston, we're going to struggle. But if there's some kind of figuring out, whether Sam Cassell or Doc Rivers gets in Maxey's ear and figures out what is wrong against Boston and flips some kind of a switch, we could be. I think this is a great comment right here, a great question, because it does all come down to Max, like especially if Joel misses games. James Harden's going to get his. James Harden's older and slower, though. It is on Maxey to figure out the question that is Boston, the struggle that is Boston. I think it's a great question, and one we'll dive into when we preview this series more later this week. Hey, I appreciate your shows more. Hey, I appreciate it. It only becomes entertaining and like this if I've got all the comments flowing in. It is. This is what it is. This is what I want the show to be. Shows like today where I've just got 10, 15 people dropping questions, comments, thoughts, and I'm just interacting with you. You don't need to call a radio station. All you got to do is comment on this show. No different. And as long as you're not a troll, and last week I had one day that there was a troll blasting me in the comments with stupid things. Outside of troll things like that, every comment, even when they're the Philadelphia Stars, when you're talking about that I know nothing about, I'll talk about it. That's all I want to do. Let's get to, for my man, need a lot of football. A lot of Saturday football. Let's transition for a few minutes. Let's talk a little Eagles. If you guys are up for it. If you have more Sixers comments, questions, put them there. I'll get to them. Yeah, exactly. Scripted guess anywhere. This is fun. I enjoy doing this. But even when I've got guests on, it's okay to I try to still integrate the questions a little bit, but it's also good to get some professional, opinions on the show because I'm just a fan doing it. So we're gonna reset. We're gonna talk Eagles. Support local pizza, please, people. Support local pizza. I love this shirt. I'm cuckoo for football 24/7. So am I. It's just a tough time with the NBA playoffs going on right now. Got to get once the Sixers are over, whether it's against Boston or longer, whatever. Well, there'll be a lot more football because you can only talk so much baseball every single morning. But let's talk football. Let's talk the Eagles first. The two rumors that came out since the last show. We did a show Friday morning, Friday afternoon. There was a rumor, and then yesterday there was a new rumor. The first rumor was the Derrick Henry rumored to be traded to the Eagles. That there's some rumors that the trade. Excuse me for a second. And allergies are a killer thing right now, man. The change in the temperatures constantly killing me. Anyway, Derrick Henry to the Eagles. Somebody that shares an agent with him, a former player, former CBS analyst, now does something with Ninja Warrior or something like that. Tweeted something out Friday midday that Derrick Henry to the Eagles is basically a done deal. Look, I don't know anything about this guy that tweeted this out. A lot of the dots connect, but let's be realistic here. There's a lot of people like jump, oh, I can't wait to get Derrick Henry, or a lot of people say absolutely not on Derrick Henry. And there's there's a question here. So first and foremost, before we get into what it would look like with Derrick Henry on this team, football, it's what would it cost? First and foremost, there's a lot of people talking about trading the 10th pick or the 30th pick or whatever, some comedy. You're not going to have to trade any of your first-round picks to get Derrick Henry. Let's get that out of the way. There is zero chance that a first, probably a second-round pick isn't needed to get Derrick Henry. Why? Because he's older. 2, he's got a lot of mileage on his legs. 3, he's got a huge contract still working on. So you would have to trade for him and then work out a restructured extension of some kind, which Howie Roseman could do that. And he wants out. He only wants to go to a certain amount of teams because he probably wants a chance at a Super Bowl. He probably wants to come to Philly to be with his buddy A.J. Brown. So all the leverage is on Howie Roseman's side in this equation. So in my opinion, it would not cost more than a 4th-round pick and a 5th-round pick. You got 5 5th-round picks next year. One of those with maybe your 3rd or 4th-round pick this year. Maybe you go the 3rd and 5th next, maybe a 4th this year, 5th next year, or 3rd next year and a 5th thing. It's not going to cost much more. Yeah, Mark, Derrick Henry is not coming here. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's smoke. Maybe it's trying to convince teams that the Eagles don't want Bijan Robinson and they're trying to let him fall. I don't know where there's smoke, though, there's fire. There is something to the rumor, whether it's a smoke screen to distract the other teams or it's the backup plan. Derrick Henry will not be an Eagle by the end of Thursday night. Derrick Henry could become an Eagle after the draft, depending on how the draft plays out. And I think I saw my man, Jimmy Smith, who's great with the salary cap and the cap structuring of contracts. He laid it all out this past weekend that if you get Derrick Henry and you do a proper restructure, it's only about $6 million this year, $7 million next year on the cap with some dead money down the line, whatever. But the cost to acquire Derrick Henry is not going to be I was talking about next year's 4th, maybe. I don't know. But you get what I'm getting at. That's what it's going to take. 4th and a 5th, a 3rd and a 5th, something in that range is all. Hey, you might be able to get him. It's slim, but you might be able to trade him just for 2 5th-round picks, honestly. Like, that might be all it takes. That's how little no team is going to trade a 1st-round pick for Derrick Henry. They're just not. So it's not going to cost a whole lot in draft capital to get him. It's just not. But back to the other thing, Hurts and Henry and the if it just say hypothetically speaking, he became an Eagle. Should he be an Eagle? Derrick Henry is not a shotgun. We run a lot of the read options, a lot of in shotgun formations, and a lot of that stuff. Yeah, 3rd, 4th round. I'll give up next year's 4th. I don't want to give up any 1st, 2nd, or 3rd rounders this year, Mark. But I'll give up any of the third or fourth round picks next year for him. And again, it's not going to happen until after the draft. If we get Bijan or we get Gibbs or we get the other guy, I forget the name. Somebody compared him last week on this show to Shady McCoy, and it was I was like, okay, if he's got Shady McCoy, he could be on my list. But do you want a guy like Derrick Henry? Didn't we already do this experiment with D'Amico Murray? Back in the day, having a I formation power runner running a read option from shotgun. I don't know if you want to adjust your offensive game plan that much to have a Derrick Henry here. Now, Derrick Henry has a lot of mileage on his legs, but also he wouldn't need to carry the ball 25, 30 times a game here like he did in Tennessee. So you can get away with him having 18 touches a game because you got Kenny Gainwell, you got Boston Scott, you got Rashad Penny. Somebody would be the odd man out there, obviously. Penny's guaranteed portion of the contract isn't much. He would actually probably be the odd man out. But does Derrick Henry even make sense in Philly? I don't know. I don't think so. And that's the thing there. I don't think Derrick Henry makes sense here because of the style of runner he is. Spears, is that the guy that somebody compared to Shady McCoy on the show last week, Kyle? I know there was somebody that they compared to very shifty, juking type of back. But your thoughts on how much harder things would be, know that the billion-dollar quarterback back and playing with players, big piece of the pie. Look, see, the thing is, it's a lot of money, but the way the contract was structured, the salary cap, he's not counting towards the salary cap for $30 million till 2026. It's such a low salary cap hit the first 2-3 years of the deal. It's not going to affect the Eagles one bit. And then by the time the cap hit goes up, the salary cap will be north of $300 million by that point. And then when it gets to the last 2 years of the deal are like $70 and $80 million cap hits. They just restructure at that point. That's all. So it's not going to affect the Eagles' salary cap and building winning teams at all in the short term. Okay, so that is the guy. I just heard Shady, and some would say that Shady McCoy is the greatest Eagles running back of all time. The Eagles picked 10 and 30 this year in the first round. You have 2 to 3 years left. That's great. We have 2 to 3 years left with this, but Jalen Hurts getting Derrick Henry. There's one positive. Getting Bijan Robinson. There's one positive. Getting Gibbs or Spears. Getting an elite running back to pair with Jalen Hurts has one key thing. If you're willing to give him the ball, it's you're protecting Jalen Hurts because you're giving Jalen Hurts, a lot of money. And he does have the injury history. Yes, Shady was a good Buffalo Bills running back too. I don't think Buffalo's had a running back of even half decent running back since Shady left. But by getting a Derrick Henry or a Bijan Robinson in the backfield, we've already talked about it with Bijan a bunch, this leading up to this draft. And again, we got Nick Faria Wednesday coming on to talk, and he's really locked in with the Eagles in the NFL draft. And then we got Shane Haff, one of my favorite guests on the show. I try to get him on once a month, once every other month to talk football. He really knows his prospects well. He'll help me recap round one on Friday. 4.43 speed, 5'10", and that's great. Yeah, definitely the last great one. But the thing is, you get a Bijan, and maybe you don't need games where Jalen Hurts is rushing the ball 18 times a game, 15 times. How many times last year did Jalen Hurts rush between 12 and 18 times a game? A lot. We don't need that. We don't want that. And that's why you see him get banged up and bruised up. And now each year he's got 2 years under his belt and he's been banged up. The ankle after year one, against Tampa in the playoffs was obviously an issue. He had the shoulder issue this year from running so much. You protect him by getting an elite running back. There is talk that he could go at the end of the first round even. So the Eagles pick at 30 if they stay at 30. And if they don't draft Bijan somewhere earlier, there's talk of the Eagles trying to grab him at 30 or trade back into the very first few picks of the second round. If he falls, and maybe you get him at 32 or 36 or something. But Gibbs will not be on the board past pick 36 or something like that. He's going to be the first running back after Bijan, and there's a chance that Gibbs goes late in the first round for sure. That's how good he is, and people say. There's some people smarter than me that say Gibbs might be the best running back in this class. Special teams in general, I mean, we talked about it. As soon as they announced that they were keeping Michael Clay as special teams coordinator, um, I was blown away by it because we had one of the worst special teams in the league last year. We were ranked 30th or 29th in overall special teams last year. Terrible. You know, what's his name? Britton Covey. I think towards the end of the year last year, Britton Covey started to show little bits of flashes of figuring it out as a punt returner. We're weak at wide receiver, so he's still got at this point, he's still got a spot on this team. I don't know what you do with punt returner. You know, we're gonna have to see. That's gonna be one of those things where it's up for grabs in training camp, and the first voluntary OTA start today. Jalen Hurts speaks at 10:30 to the media, so I know I'll be watching that, and I know we'll talk about it this week, from time to time. You know, but you know, it's a problem. Special teams as a whole. So we do need to address that. Now, I do want to address the safety situation. We need safeties. Yeah, we might trade for one. Obviously, as much as the Derrick Henry trade rumors are circulating, the Buda Baker wants to be in Philly and basically said he wants to play for Nick Sirianni is there. So that is something you could see happen during the draft. Whether it's Thursday night or Friday night, a trade for Buda Baker is very possible. So, yeah. I'm not ready to talk about next year's Super Bowl yet. Let's get the team situated and see who's on whose team, and then we can figure that out. But you got to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. We did not get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. That's why he picked us apart. That's why he was able to lead all those touchdown drives in the Super Bowl. You got to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. The other rumor that was circulating with the Eagles was Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. The Ohio State wide receiver. And I've actually been on this one for a while. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I don't even want to talk about him. All the comments he made to the media and how the media here were talking about. Yeah, I'm over Jonathan Gannon, Mark. Over him by a mile. I don't want to talk about Jonathan Gannon. I want to talk about the Eagles. I don't care about the Arizona Cardinals unless it's talking about getting Buda Baker here. But the wide receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Ohio State wide receiver. I talked about this like 4 weeks ago. That interior line, offensive, defensive, Jalen Carter, an offensive tackle, whatever. That's how he's MO in the first round of drafts. But he also is a wide receiver. He's now 2 of the last 3 years drafted a first-round wide receiver. One bombed in Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith, who's going to be a superstar. Devontae Smith may actually be better than A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith might be the best wide receiver on the Eagles. Yeah, Jigba. Yeah, it's really it's in Jigba. Okay, so it's not Njigba, it's in Jigba. Yeah, I can't wait to absolutely. I have no idea. I have no idea. Buddha. You know I can't pronounce the name. I've been on this whole, in Jigba to the Eagles for like 4 weeks now. That how he drafts wide receivers. We need another wide receiver. Yeah, we'll just say JSN. Just like we said, we did CGJ at first till we got used to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. We'll just say JSN. I've been on this topic for 4 weeks now. We need another wide receiver. You need to surround. It's funny. We complain nonstop that Carson Wentz never had the weapons. Well, you've got an opportunity now to add a third elite wide receiver to this group. A.J. Brown's going to year 2 of his 4-year deal. Devontae Smith's going into year 3. He's going to get an extension. Why not get a cheap? Yeah, he does need a nickname. Only if he comes to Philly. If he doesn't come to Philly, then I don't care. And I'm not saying I think the Eagles will do it. But what I'm saying is I don't want to be people to be surprised if they do. Because Howie is not making the same mistakes that he used to make. He has learned from his past mistakes. He is a much different GM now than he was in 2020, in 2018, whatever it may be. Is he under 6 feet tall? I don't look. Eric, you're new to this show. I don't know my college prospects until about we start talking about the draft. I don't watch a lot of college football. We'll get to tight ends in 1 second. But I just know he's a playmaker, and we need playmakers. And you don't want to have the same situation with Carson Wentz. You want your quarterback that you just invested $250 million in to have as many weapons as possible to succeed. You invest in Jalen Hurts to win a Super Bowl. How do you win the Super Bowl? You give Jalen Hurts the options, the weapons, so that you don't have Quez Watkins dropping balls or fumbling balls in the middle of the Super Bowl. This right here. This is interesting. Very interesting. Better chance that they draft JSN than Bijan. That is very, very interesting. Look, it's all going to come down to, is Jalen Carter there at 10? Do the Eagles move? I still think the Eagles are trying right now to move up and see how far they can move up to ensure that they get Jalen Carter to solidify that defensive line. I really, truly believe that that's the move Howie wants to make. But it's not necessarily the move that he can make. So, bottom line, Eagles have 2 first-round picks, and they need to select. I agree. I know a lot of people are talking about trading and only taking 1 first-rounder. You need 2 guys that could start immediately on this team or contribute immediately. Last year, Jordan Davis, he kind of sort of contributed a little bit. No. We don't need another Jordan Davis in this draft. We need people that are going to contribute day one a lot. Jalen Carter does that. Jalen Carter, the Falcons, I don't know. I end up thinking if he's not an Eagle, he's a Detroit Lion. That's where I think he goes to Detroit. If the Eagles can't trade up ahead of Detroit, I think he'll go to Detroit. We do. And Njigba is that guy. And that's why I keep saying, I've been saying it for 4 weeks now. How we got 2 first, we made a trade with the Falcons, with the Saints. We've got the Saints pick at 10 this year because, Howie Roseman is a genius. How they use him, unless if you take Njigba at 10 and then you trade from 30 and you get back up, maybe you get him at 20. Look, Bijan Robinson is going to probably be a Dallas Cowboy. It's going to break my heart, but that's where I see him going there. Gambling on the Lions. I agree. I think Jalen Carter goes to the Lions, but we need a guy. We can't have Quez Watkins as that guy. We just can't. That is true. We didn't really get to talk about this. This broke after the show on Friday. Detroit has no wide receivers left now because of the gambling situation. That's a question. I don't know how that is going to play out. And Jameson Williams, we dodged a bullet. Past the Bears. What are the Bears? 8, 9. Bears are 9. So yeah, we definitely have to jump the Bears. But I don't know if you could jump the Lions. That's the thing. I think he goes to the Lions. If he doesn't go to the Lions, Bears. The Raiders supposedly have already taken him off their charts. I wouldn't be happy if I was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I'd be wishing I was in Philly right now. Hey, look, I'm going to continue to pronounce it wrong because that's just what I do. I always pronounce it. Yeah, it really should be. And if this show is a 2-hour show, we might dive into this. Again, to recap, obviously a bunch of people suspended for gambling, some on football, some on other sports, in the facility, a lot of stuff going on there. But I stand by my same philosophy with the Calvin Ridley situation. You were told day one, rookie symposium, you do not gamble, especially on football, and you don't gamble in the team facilities. They did. Everybody wants the NFL to have more defined guidelines. When you commit X act, you get Y suspension. And they're wrong in so many situations with domestic violence and drinking and DUI. There's so many things the NFL gets wrong. But they have a definitive guideline on gambling, and you know it. So if you bet, you get suspended. Go buy a damn burner phone. Are you that stupid? Use your friend's phone to place a bet if you have to. But on day one, if you gamble, you get suspended. This is what the fans want. The NFL to have specific guidelines. They do, and now everybody hates it. Getting in bed with betting apps and casinos, that's another whole story. And I get where you're coming from on that, Mark. But, the NFL's not going to. The NFL's a business. They're making money on it. Yeah, I get this. I get this comment. I get it. Now there's going to be a baseball team in Vegas. The Oakland Athletics are going to be moving to Vegas. It is what it is. But, you're not going to. The NFL's not going to miss out on that money. Skoronski looks like the pick of that's gonna excite me massively because I love interior line. I love offensive. I love trench warfare. Lynch. I do. But that's going to disappoint a lot of Eagles fans if that's the case. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, could you imagine? Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad for my man Jason Sullivan. He's my golf podcast partner. I do, for those new to the show and this channel, I do a golf podcast on Tuesday nights, talking gambling and fantasy golf. Since we're talking gambling right now with the Detroit Lions, Tuesday nights 9 p.m. Fairway to Heaven. Check it out. Like you could smoke the devil's. Look, it's the rules. They at least they made the guidelines. It's not like they're like a hidden byline in the union agreement. It's something you're talked about, and it's been discussed. It's talked about on day one as a rookie. You do not do this. It is what it is. It's what happens. Tight ends. I know need a lot of football. You mentioned tight ends. I don't know the names of a lot of tight ends in this draft. The Eagles, in my opinion, need a second tight end. Stoll and Calcaterra aren't enough for me. This is a deep tight end draft from what I've read and from what I've heard. But I don't know. I don't know a lot about it. But anyway, we're coming up on the last 5 minutes of this show. So I just want to, if you guys got comments coming in, keep them coming in, and I'll get to them. I think I missed one here. No, I think I got through all your comments so far. So real quick, before I wrap this show up, I do want to talk 2 or 3 minutes of Phillies, because I just want to bitch because, Mark's in the room, Mark's watching, and Mark's my bitter enemy now when it comes to the Phillies, even though he's one of my best friends. Me and him hate each other now. The Phillies took 3 out of 4 against the Rockies. There is no Phillies game today. Tomorrow, Adam Mack from AAT Sports is going to join me. He covers the Iron Pigs for their network. He also covers the Phillies. He's got the media credentials. He goes to all the Iron Pigs home games, sits in the media booth. He knows a lot about the minor leagues of the Phillies. He hosts a great podcast as well. And I put out a tweet yesterday that upset Mark a little bit. I just want to explain it a little bit. Is there any way the Eagles draft corner and convert him to safety? I don't know. I forget which one's which, Witherspoon and Gonzalez. But I was talking to a draft expert, and one of them said, if one of them's there at 10, no matter what, you have to take him. But if the other one's there at 10, let's say, the tackle or Jalen Carter, there's other options there. One is a lock at 10 if he's there. The other one you could pass on. I don't like the idea, but if you get Witherspoon or Gonzalez, I hate the idea, but you can move Maddox to safety, I guess. Hey, I appreciate you tuning in, Eric. I really do. Every day, 8:30 a.m., right here, I do this every day. And if I get more shows like this, I'll do longer than an hour. I'll start at 8 a.m. and go till 9:30. So I appreciate you tuning in, my man. I do. I greatly appreciate it. Back to the safety. I guess you can move Vontae Maddox to safety. I guess. It's not a great idea, but you could. Bradbury and Slay are both north of 30, so drafting Witherspoon wouldn't be the worst thing. Slay misses time every game, so it wouldn't be the worst thing. I just don't think that's what they do. Lito Shepard was the last first-round cornerback that they took, and that was a long time ago. To the Phillies. To my comments to my man Mark. There's a bell on YouTube. You click that, you get a notification, but I am live every day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. And again, if shows like today, I'll go earlier. If enough people tune in, I'll go live at 8 and do an hour and a half, because shows like today with all these comments, the fact that my guest couldn't make it today, these shows are cakewalks with all you guys tuning in. This is great. This has been a blast today. But I do want to get my final thoughts here on Mark, just to tell you, because I put out there 3 or 4 out of the Rockies, the Phillies. Oh, thanks, Mark. Even though you hate my Phillies hate. Yeah, also buy his pizza. Yeah, support local pizza. I'm going to create a shirt today. It says support local podcasters, because this shirt has inspired me today. Fox's Pizza, Kennett Square, PA. Come on out. Come get the best pizza in Southern Chester County. We can talk sports, and you can eat great pizza. I said the Phillies, it was nice that they took 3 out of 4, and actually it's like 5 out of 7 out of the last 2 series. They've won their last 2 series. They're 11 and 12 now, but I am not ready, like some, to jump up and down about this Phillies team. They just beat the Colorado Rockies and the Cincinnati Reds and the Chicago White Sox. It's not like they're beating barn burners of teams. Starting tomorrow, they got Seattle. The Dodgers. Who else is on that? I forget now. They got 3 to 4 legit teams now coming up. And I cannot get excited for the Phillies just because they took 3 or 4 from a bad Rockies team And literally, they should have taken 4 out of 4. And they barely took 3 out of 4 against the Rockies. 2 of the games were comeback wins, 4-3. There are bright spots so far. The bullpen looks fantastic. Kimbrel, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Alvarado, Soto. Legit bullpen right there, 4 right there. Legit. The offense is still hit or miss. How are we a legit team when we barely are 500? We're not 500. We've played a very easy start to the schedule. I know Bryce Harper is out. Rhys Hoskins is hurt. Ranger Suarez is hurt. But you still got a lot of the same issues. Zach Wheeler, I know he struck out 11 yesterday, but the pop-up bad inning, it's got to stop. Your aces can't do that. Aaron Nola still does not look right. You can't keep winning with Matt Strahm and Bailey Falter and Taijuan Walker. Like, there is still significant concerns about the starting pitching on this team. And if the starting pitching performs the way it has in the last week or so, we're going to lose a lot of the games in the next 2 weeks. Okay? And you get Ranger Suarez back? Yeah, he hasn't pitched since last year. Like, who knows what we're going to get? Bryce Harper, he's not even going on a rehab assignment. So it's not like Bryce Harper instantly back's going to change things. He's still going to have to figure things out. And when you bring him back, you still got Rob Thompson playing Christian Pache, who I know hit a big home run the other day. I still don't care, and I still don't think he's an Major League Baseball player, even though he's now got over 300 batting average. I don't know. Every time I say something bad about a player. Yeah, Nola is suspect. Suarez is coming back, but he's had arm trouble now. Who knows what he's going to be like? I already suggested it, and I know it's a terrible idea, but maybe Ranger Suarez should go to the bullpen and not Matt Strahm. Why not? I'm okay with that. I know Ranger wants to start. I know Matt Strahm was bought here to be a reliever, but Matt Strahm's pitched pretty damn well. He's not stretched out. I don't think he can even get to like 90 pitches even after as many starts as he's had. I don't know. But you got issues with this team. You still don't hit with runners in scoring position on a regular basis. You know, you still got Rob Thompson right in an unbalanced lineup every single day. I just can't get super pumped yet until I see. Again, I'm not saying the Phillies suck. And this is where Mark misunderstands me. I'm not saying the Phillies suck. I'm also not saying the Phillies are a great team like Mark. Like, I'm not going to say the Phillies are legit. I'm not. I'm also not going to say they suck. I'm going to say, let's wait and see. Give me 2 weeks against legit competition, which is what the Phillies have. Let me double check this schedule here real quick for the Phillies here. I know it's Seattle starting tomorrow. Phillies schedule. Click on that schedule button there. Yes, it's Seattle. Okay. And then after Seattle, we go to Houston, which is going to be tough, obviously. Then we go to LA, which is going to be tough. And then we go Boston at home. And then we got Toronto after that. And Toronto's a really good team, too. So you got 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 games against playoff caliber opponents. Not Cincinnati Reds opponents or Colorado Rockies opponents or Chicago White Sox. I mean, you look at the schedule we played this year. We played Cincinnati 8 times already. We played the Marlins, the White Sox, the Rockies. This next 14 games is going to be what helps me determine whether I'm on board with the Phillies or not. That's what it is. I'm not saying I don't know if they can. Seattle's a good team. They're not the Colorado Rockies. If we play like we did against the Rockies, we lose the series. Because I don't think we played great against the Rockies. We played okay. We just won because we are a better team than the Rockies. We're a middle-of-the-pack team. We won 87 games last year. And we're on pace. We're the type of team that's going to win 85, 87, 88 games again. We're going to get into the wild card at the last second again. That's what this team is right now, what I see. Now, they can surprise me over the next 14 games. Next 14 games, if they win 8, if they go 8-6 in the next 4 games, that'll put them 1 game over 500. So after the Blue Jay series, if we are over 500 at that point, that'll be a successful run, in my opinion, because then you'll get Harper back, then you'll get Ranger back, and things will be looking up. But if they're 6-8, that's a disappointment. Remember, blue cheese ranch on wing. If you get a good homemade chunky blue cheese, I love it. My bar down the street, Two Stones. I love their homemade blue cheese. That's all. That's all I want to see. If they can go 8-6 over the next 14 games, puts them over 500, then we're talking maybe they're legit when everybody's healthy and everybody's back. But I expect a 5-9, 6-8 at best over these next 14 games. If they go 5-9 or 6-8, that's about par for me on what I think this team is. Now, they could do worse than that, and then I'm going to be really ultra negative on here, Mark. But if they do what I expect, it's 6-8, 5-9. That's not great. That's what I think, an average team at this point. But if they go 8-6, then we're talking that maybe they're legit. Anyway, I got to wrap it up because the pizza shop needs to open. It's 9:35. I started 5 minutes early. I've gone 5 minutes late. So this is an hour and 10-minute show day, so we've gone major overtime. Again, if we get more shows like today, tell your friends. Trending in the AM, the most interactive, best show on the market. We could do this every day. I could start at AM. We can go 90 minutes a day. Everybody, for Philadelphia Sports Network, make sure you like, you subscribe, you follow, you turn notifications on. I am Phil Stifle at Beard and Knowledge. We've got to wrap it up for the day here. I appreciate you checking in as you do as well, my man. I really do. Ring that bell. That's right, because we don't got the Sixers till Friday or Saturday or Monday of next week. The draft on Thursday. That's my main focus later this week. But we will be back. Everybody have a great day for Philadelphia Sports Network. I am Phil Stifle. You have a great Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow. Again, don't forget, Adam Mack, AAT Sports, Iron Pigs Report, coming on to talk Phillies tomorrow. Y'all have a great day.